beautiful people. Welcome back to Global Dance News. I am your host, Israel Rodriguez. So, I'm assuming you're here to watch Peter Stark interview part 2. But if you haven't seen the first part, go over there, click there, go watch it, and come back and see this one. I do want to thank everyone who left a very positive comment. Thank you so much. Also, if you haven't, please subscribe because I promise you, you don't want to miss what is coming next. So guys, once again, thank you. Let's jump into the interview. Leave your comment and I hope you enjoy it. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about dance moms. And you feel free to tell me or not tell me anything.
Sure.
We're lucky that, we have a lot of parents who support their kids and they know how hard it might be to become a professional dancer. Some parents, they don't understand that. Some parents, in my opinion, think that their daughter or their boy, they are the best, they had to be dancing the first. If a parent were to make a mistake, what would it be?
Well, I have befriended many of the parents of my most successful students because we worked together to make the best decision for those kids. The larger school, and I've worked in small schools and I've worked in big schools. So I'm in a big school now, as the head of the men's program at Boston Ballet School and associate director of Boston Ballet II. And I have any contact with the parents is initiated by me, not by them. They're not even allowed into the building past a certain point. So there are clear parameters. Now, when you're in a small school, just physically, usually the lobby is smaller and you're interacting and you're passing in and out. You're going to physically be near these people. I remember in Orlando, for instance, walking to my car and a parent's approaching me and, 30 minutes to an hour later before I could get in my car. I couldn't even get in my car because, in those early days, people were questioning everything I did. But I do feel like I've had great compassion and understanding for parents, which has enabled my success with some of these exceptional young talent and understanding that, they love their kid and they want what's best for their kid. So first, I think as a teacher, you have to approach like, look, this person's driving me crazy, but it's coming from love. And if one of the things I try to do is establish that connection, say, look, we want the same thing for your kid. You want your kid to be successful. I want your kid to be successful. And when this kid is successful, we both can brag and say, look at this, what we've created. And once I understand that you're not in opposition, you're working towards the same goal, I feel like that definitely helps. And sometimes parents know things, that I did not. I mean, sometimes about students. I remember when I first started teaching, I was still dancing. I was teaching at the Maryland Youth Ballet in Washington, D.C. area. And I had this really troublesome boy. And he was, just acting out always. And I was, constantly fighting. And then one day he just was so morose and was not participating. And I got very angry. And I said, well, if you're not going to participate, you can sit in the corner. We sat in the corner, and then the mother came to me afterward and said, I just want to tell you, he has ADHD and we just started this new medicine. Well, of course I punished him because he wasn't participating because, his whole mood dropped with whatever, down or medicine they gave him. And I thought, wow, I really would have been nice to know that information as an educator, before, I berated the child for not participating. So they can be your collaborators. Now, that said, I will also say you do need to draw a line. I can remember one very talented student I had, and this individual had a lot of success prior to coming to train with me as a student. And the parent, who has become a really dear personal friend of mine now, really negotiated with me. It was like a mortgage, we had like a contract of what I was going to do, and what we were going to provide, because the parent knew that bringing the student to my school was going to bring notoriety and success to my school. And we started negotiating back and forth, about what we would provide for this student. Similar to the way I would say colleges maybe, negotiate for a quarterback, in Division I football, something like that. And first of all, I was willing to do that. Some teachers and schools are not willing to do that. I wanted to work with the talent. But there was a point where I said, okay, enough. We've talked a lot about this. This is the line, and I'm the teacher. And from this point forward, this is not a partnership. I appreciate your input and I appreciate your trust. But at this moment, you have to trust that I'm the teacher and I'm going to make the decisions from here on out. And so again, I don't think it has to be 100% no or 100% yes, but I think as a teacher, you have to have that line of where the parents can't cross. And for one very simple thing, I don't think the parents should come into the studio for classes, unless you have parent observation or something like that, where they all coming in, or privates. You can have a window, certainly, or, now maybe people will do this virtually the way we are here. But I don't think the parents should be a part of the educational process. But again, I feel like establishing a connection with the parents is good, and understanding that you have the same goal in mind, but there's got to be that line of, what, and also as a teacher to understand that, to hold that line. It's like raising a child. You can't say, well, you're not allowed to do this, and then they do it and you're like, all right, well, whatever. You have to say, you know what, then we're done. Then then go find another school.
That's right. And I think it's very important that they trust us.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, like you said, we want the same.
Right.
There's always somebody crazy that give you a hard time all the time, and it make you feel sometimes that, am I doing something wrong here? What do I need to do better for this woman or this father? It doesn't matter, to be happy. I see students that are so talented, and parents completely messed up their dance career only because they try to tell them that they're better, they're good. Don't let other people. And I understand where they come from, but at the same time, you cannot be telling a student that you're the best, you shouldn't be doing this, why you not dancing this? And we are not going to give your daughter or your kid a part only because you're nice to me. It's not going to happen. She or he is in level 3 because she doesn't have, or he, the technique yet to be in another level. Our job here is to teach them to a certain level. So next year, you go to the next level. Sometimes they don't understand that. Obviously, whether Katya and I, we think, there's a lot of regulations and things, you don't want to, where I come from Cuba, you study, this is what we do for a living. And this is what we're going to be doing for a living. Here's a little bit different, and we're learning slowly, we're learning now to deal with this kind of stuff.
And I agree with you, but I want to remind you of one thing, that there are also teachers that, even though they teach ballet well, don't give good advice to the students. And one of those, I give you a good example. As I said, competitions is finite. The reality is, as an educator, your time with a student is finite. Now, whether that's 1 year, 5 years, 10, but at some point it's going to stop. And oftentimes teachers, when they have a talent, are scared to let that student go to the next phase. And they'll tell a parent, just trust me. And I have seen that where, we'll find a talent and, we're trying to recruit them at 16 years old, let's say, to come to our school to finish the last 2 years of education and be a candidate to join Boston Ballet. And they don't. They go back to their home school. And then they come back at 18 and audition, wanting to get into Boston Ballet II. And it's too late. They've missed that window of opportunity where we can add. And it's not that their teacher was bad. It's just that there are aspects of being in a large organization surrounded by other talents, surrounded by choreographers like Bill Forsyth, that they're not going to get in their home studio. So I agree with you 100%. Parents need to understand their place. They need to have trust in their teachers. And yet parents also need to be involved to understand that, the teacher may not know best, unfortunately. So you do need to be an informed parent, because any educator's time with any student is finite. I don't care if you're a doctor, master's degree, doctorate. You're not gonna be someone's teacher for the entirety of their life. You're just not. The teacher you had in first grade is not going to be the teacher you have in 12th grade. It won't be.
That's correct. What is the best technique? I'm Cuban. I come from
Viva la Cuba!
Cubano, what? I come from Cuban school,
Mhm.
and there is so many techniques out there, different styles and everything.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you're right, you know
Glad
where I'm
you're
going.
asking me. I'm
Huh?
glad.
Say that again.
I'm glad you're asking me this.
I need to know, and I never ask you this question because you've been working with a lot of different dancers, and not every dancer might be able to dance Balanchine, dance the Cuban. They have different.
So this is something that I do. So I run Boston Ballet II, which is the transition. It's a first year professional dancers, and they have their own rep, and then they also perform with Boston Ballet. And one of the things that I say is that the majority of companies in the world now dance in the style of the ballets. They do not dance in the style of the company. There are a few companies that are very stylistically specific. Of course, most notably in the world, I would say at this point, is New York City Ballet. If New York City Ballet does Theme and Variations, or if they do Swan Lake, you would notice it right away. Now, if you would to see San Francisco, Boston, Houston, Royal Ballet, Paris Opera, do Swan Lake, you might not, unless you knew the dancers and the sets and costumes, you might not be able to recognize necessarily which company it was. Similarly, if any of those companies I mentioned did Theme and Variations, you might not be able to recognize, because the dancers are to be employable, you have to be versatile, which means if you're dancing a Balanchine ballet, you have to do it in the Balanchine style. If you're doing a traditionally classical ballet, you have to do it in that style. If you're working with a choreographer, we're very blessed here that William Forsythe is a resident choreographer. They have to do whatever Bill wants. So to be successful, you have to be versatile. Now, that being said, as a young dancer, I think most educators feel you have to pick one methodology, be that Giacchetti, Vaganova, Cuban style. There are many wonderful methodologies to train. I would say up until age 16 or so. Once you have a really sound base, you really need to be versatile. And that's another aspect of going from what I mentioned earlier, your first school to your next school, because your first school should and would likely be in one specific style. When you leave there and go to a school associated with a ballet company, you're going to be pretty advanced in general if you're leaving at age 16 or so. And that's when you want to start to diversify the types of classes you're taking so that you can then respond to different choreography appropriately.
What is happening now? Something that I'm always wanting to ask somebody like you. In my time, to become principal dancer was not just getting to the company, now you're principal. I see so many places that they put a kid of 16, 17, and they make them principal dancers. And I have seen cases that person get very egocentric. They think they got everything, that they are the best and everything. And I dislike that. For us, for Cubans, even though some jump some category, if that's correct, what is the time for a dancer to become principal soloist? Or I want you to advise other kids who think, if I'm already 17, I'm old already. I heard
I,
that.
I will say that this is changing in the field. Going back to the 1920s and 30s, very famously, there were the term baby ballerina was coined because you had some 13 and 14-year-old, dynamic ballerinas that hit the scene and became quite well known. And, there's been some famous cases of people that were pushed too fast and burnt out. And I've actually had some personal experience with that with students of mine. And that's very sad to see. But I feel like most artistic directors around the world, the vast majority see that, and they're really trying to restrain an exceptional talent as they move into the company and up and out of the core. I would say in general, at the shortest, it's a 4-year process to go from first year dancer into soloist roles anymore. You'll get a couple, you'll get one here and one there. But people are holding back. Now, of course, Stella Abrera became just such an inspiration to so many dancers because she was 19 years in ABT before she got promoted to principal. Now, I didn't dance professionally for 19 years. So, a lot of people don't even dance that long all together. So, to me, that's a real inspiration of that end of it. Now, of course, that's maybe a bit long for some people to wait. But I think when you're talking about, people, I hate to use the word exploiting, but exploiting young talent, it's usually smaller organizations that are desperate, to entertain. And I would encourage artistic directors to really think of not just the pirouettes and the jumps, but the intellect. And, there's a lot of research now that says that even the human brain doesn't fully form until 25 or 26. So really, even if you are physically capable, you're not necessarily intellectually or emotionally ready to do that. And, Fernando had a good story about that. And I have to tell the story without 4-letter words, but I'll let you use your imagination. When he was preparing for Varna, he said to his coach, I really want to do Black Swan. And she said, "You can't do Black Swan," his coach said. And he said, "Why not?" And she said, "You can't do Black Swan because you haven't a woman yet. And when you've been with a woman, then I'll let you do Black Swan." Now, of course, I'll say, as an openly gay man, it could be a man too. However, you got to grow up. That some of these roles are, require you to have a level of emotional maturity before you're able to handle it. But also, physically, when you're a principal dancer, as you well know, because you were a wonderful dancer yourself, there's a strain on your body, and you have to build the requisite strength, which takes years. There's no shortcut.
That's great, Peter. That's a great information. Tell me a little bit about your program there in Boston.
Well, the big news here in Boston, and I'm talking to you, in the middle of this COVID-19, 2020, but we're launching a partnership with Walnut Hill Boarding School. So Walnut Hill is a 125-year-old boarding school in the rolling hills of Western Massachusetts. And they have had traditionally music and dance, art and theater in a boarding school setting with full academics. So what this allows us to do is to offer to a student, academics, housing, and dance training in one pastoral setting that's safe and contained and associated with our professional company, Boston Ballet. So we'll be actually the second professional dance company of our size in North America to offer this. The other, of course, is Canada's National Ballet School. Many of our colleagues have components of this where they have a dormitory and a partnership with the school or something like that. But this will be a comprehensive academic and art education and dormitory all in one setting. So that's really exciting. That's launching next year, and we're excited to see that happen. But basically, Boston Ballet represents many dance organizations where we have a base of a school that anybody can participate in. And that starts at age 3 and goes to age 14. Then we have a pre-professional program that is audition only from 14 to 18, which will now take place at Walnut Hill. Then we have a postgraduate program. So you've graduated high school, you start to work with the company a little bit, but you're still training. Boston Ballet II for us is equivalent to apprentice. They are paid professionals with full company benefits. And then after Boston Ballet II, you join the company. And then of course in our company, we have core, second soloist, first soloist, principal.
Great. Peter, I'm going to leave some information down below. If anybody wanted to check the program, I don't know if they need to call you guys or to call you or send an email.
To contact us is www.bostonballet.org. on audition information and performance information, and everything is on that website. You can find it somewhere, both the school and the company, bostonballet.org.
Let's conclude by you giving an advice to every young student or any dancers out there that are going, let's say that they start, they're going to college and that they haven't decided what to do. Can you give an advice to any dancer who really wanted to make it, that really want to be a professional?
Well, it's interesting when you asked me your question about giving advice to a young dancer, and you actually said going to college. My advice is that your path is unique. That, oftentimes we look at the successes of the field and think, well, oh, so that individual went to the Curif Academy, and then they became a soloist here, and then they won the Varna competition, or whatever it is. Each successful person in any endeavor has a completely unique path. So whether you go to college, whether you go to a professional training program, whether you train privately, you train in it, your path is going to be unique from anybody else's. So gather information, find inspiration from some other people's stories, but create your own story. Your story is going to be different from everybody else's.
Well, Peter, thank you so much once again for doing this, my friend. Like I always said, I feel so much respect for you. You always been, so intense. You can see Gadia?
I can't see her back there. That was for you. Garza de la Garza, look at you. So beautiful.
Thank you so much, Peter. We love you, and I'm going to let you know.
When this is all over.
I know.
All right.
You have to come over here with us.
I will. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
So here you are, guys, once again. I hope you enjoyed both parts. And if you have any comments, please leave a comment below. And all the links about Peter Stark and his program are down below. If you want to know anything, just go and contact him at Boston Ballet. Guys, thank you once again for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode, which I'm going to be announcing pretty soon. Thank you again. Please be blessed. Be safe.